let's as a group discuss some of the things that are going on. So in what way in this story, and these are questions that I would ask with students. So I will just have a little miniature classroom lesson. In what way is Galileo using creativity throughout this story? How else is Galileo using creativity?
To interpret his observations.
Why does interpreting observations require creativity?
Sometimes it can change your entire worldview. If you believe the moon is a smooth celestial sphere, like somebody, oh, look at the mountains on it. That takes a lot.
Okay. And the point that I would make to students there is I would say something to the effect of data doesn't tell us what to think. And this goes back to these nature science ideas all circle in with each other. A lot of people think that scientists are objective. They look at the data and there's the answer. Well, they're missing the most important step. They look at the data and then they have to think about what they already know, what they're trying to understand, and try and figure out if the data makes sense or what sense the data makes. Because we have this data, what does it mean? And that's where the creativity really comes into play.
And not only that, but the same people could be looking at the same data and not get the interpretation you are.
What would cause
Same thing.
What would cause two different people to look at the same piece of data and not interpret it the same way?
Whatever it
Bias.
Say it again.
Bias.
What did you say over here? Okay. Where does bias come from? The background. What? Okay. Culture. All right. And so another follow-up question I would ask students is, in what way, and I'm not going to expect you guys to answer this question because we don't have any combined experience in here. I mean, we do. We don't have a shared experience necessarily. Is that, in what way have you used creativity in your investigations in this classroom? And so now I'm taking the creativity that Galileo is exhibiting and having them connect it to the creativity that they've exhibited. And I'm drawing them, and if they struggle with that, I might have to ask a follow-up question, like, when you were doing the density lab, or the density investigation, or the water investigation, or whatever, when did you run into troubles? How did you get through those troubles? How was that created? And so if they can't get with the big question, I have to build them up to the big question. At one point it says, he, Galileo, quickly published his findings. Why would Galileo publish his findings? What?
To get recognition. To communicate his findings.
Maybe to try and get a job.
A lot of people don't see those kind of aspects of scientists, that they are selfish, and actually I draw students' attention to Kepler, how he sent the messages to Kepler in code because he didn't want Kepler to steal his ideas. There's a lot of selfish reasons that the scientists work. It's not just like, oh, I'm so interested in the world. Well, yeah, that's part of it, but they also they're just like us. They're just like the students. Let me see what else I want to talk about. Oh, here's a question that we can wrestle with. How did technology both help and hinder Galileo's work?
You could see things a lot of other people couldn't with his telescope.
In what way was that a help?
What did she say?
You said
He had a fancy telescope that a lot of people didn't have access to, so he could see things that gave him more observations to come up with new findings. Probably harmful because he had less scientists to back up what he was observing.
So let's say that last part again. Harmful, why?
Because he didn't have other scientists to back him up readily because they didn't have that technology.
Okay, and so how was it helpful? Well, I mean, let's not even talk about that. That's pretty obvious. You can see part of it. And so a lot of people don't make that connection. They see technology, and students actually, go ahead.
A lot of people didn't even believe that looking through the telescope you could see an accurate image. They're like, maybe it's a trick.
Yep, aberrations in the instrument, I believe, is what the term was. That there's scratches on it or something. You know, like maybe there's just something. This magical device somehow allows you to project images on them. I don't know. You know, I mean, but yes, you're right. There was these concerns about, well, we don't know how this device works. And actually, the link you can make here is that Galileo had to understand something about optics, which is science. He had to use that understanding of optics to build the telescope, which is technology. he could use that technology to investigate the moon, which is back to science. And so the science and technology relationship is very mixed up with each other, but it's not always good. A lot of people just kind of say technology is always good. It helps us. It makes things easier, which it does, but there's also a lot of negative consequences that go along with it that we don't really articulate to students very often. An example that I'm thinking of that's a little bit more advanced is we build machines like scanning electron microscopes to look for what we want them to look for. So of course they see what we want them to see. Do those things actually exist? It's an interesting philosophical dilemma that we're not going to get too much into here. How did the culture of the times affect Galileo's work?
They wanted to believe Earth was the center of the universe. They didn't want to believe anything different because they wanted to feel that Earth was the most important.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I think it's also important that we realize that there's another really important technology that prior to Galileo wasn't there, and that's the printing press. And so it was part of the natural philosophers to then have their ideas in print form. And so it's analogous to blogging.
Okay.
And so Galileo had this immense ego.
Bloggers don't have egos. What are you talking about? I blog.
But that was part of it, was just the drive to get his ideas down. because
Which
it was there.
does relate to the cultural aspect because technology influenced our culture. Like the Reformation happened because of the printing press.
Right.
And so ideas about religion were being challenged because of the printing press. No longer was the Bible only on the pulpit. It was in the hands of not everybody, because you still had to have enough money to buy one, but more people.
Right.
Yeah.
I think too that when Rob was talking about Galileo as a rebel, what I used in my earth science classes is the same story. But I've also said, and it seems to accord with my at-risk kids, somebody questions the status quo. Somebody says, but that doesn't make any sense if I see this. And so rather than accept, there's a certain nature of rebelliousness in this. And it's a good thing.
I think just for time's sake, I'm